Hey gang, Mark here with you. It's Lessons Learned 36. And we've been alternating episodes between the past and the present. Today we're going back to 1983. Rad and gnarly, man. So, the night after Christmas of '82, I started a new job across the street from the bakery where I had been working, and was still working actually. But I got a new job as well at a 24-hour convenience store. I started on the midnight to 6 shift. Fun times. I had to learn the cash register and start to memorize the prices of every item. Barcodes existed in 1982, 83, but they were not commonly present in stores, and my store didn't have them. They weren't in widespread use yet, is what I'm trying to say. The co-worker who trained me there was an interesting guy. He sported an attitude that would make the Napoleon complex look like a Best Personality Award. Every statement he made was dripping with sarcasm, if not outright anger. And I quickly learned to keep my replies brief and always in the affirmative when he showed me something or told me anything, which was often. And so we got along. Blessed are the peacemakers, as Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5:9. Now, beyond being a peacemaker, I could have done more. I'd like to say I was a witness to Christ for my co-workers. I'd like to say that I explained to them why I seemed like a sort of upright person who drew the line on certain things where they did not. But the fact of the matter is I didn't really go into that. And I wish I had. Well, the top 40 radio station was always playing at the store where I worked, and that was the year of Michael Jackson's Thriller, among many other milestones. One hit from that album, then another, then another, then another. You know, typically you get one, maybe two singles from a record. There were 7 hit singles from that record. I counted them. Was there any song on that record that didn't make it into the top 40? I don't know. But, you know, looking back now, I mean, I know he's still widely liked, and his music has had an impression, but worldly fame and fortune are so deceptive. Particularly for the believer, that's not something we should be longing after or trying for. Not something to seek after. Psalm 49:17 says, speaking of the person who gains fortune and fame, quote, "When he dies, he shall carry nothing away. His glory shall not descend after him." We're not to be living for the things of this world. This world is not our home. But though that is the case, and I grew up knowing the Bible and I was now a believer, I don't think I followed that thinking terribly much at that time. I did still spend a lot of time listening to secular music. But one thing I did, which I think I did more to get laughs from people than anything else, but again, looking back, I think this thing I did also helped me from taking all that secular music and secular artists a little too seriously. I made up wrong words to songs, and I would sing them along with the song at work or wherever I was. So a song that a lot of people still like today, Africa by Toto, you know. I wish the rain down in Africa. I used to sing, I wish the rain was in Africa. I didn't really know anyone named Lorraine. It would just fit the song and got some laughs from my coworkers, so I sang it. Beat It by Michael Jackson, one of the 7 singles from Thriller. Beat It. You've heard great minds thinking alike. Well, I'm not sure about the great minds part. as far as it applied to me and Weird Al at the time, but I was singing Beat It to the song, I was singing Eat It to the song Beat It before Weird Al came out with his song. Maybe he thought of it first, I don't know. Anyway, the way my mind works, how could you not think of that when you hear that song? There were occasionally songs that I thought had some semi-decent lyrics to them. There was David Bowie, China Girl. My little China girl, you shouldn't mess with me. I'll ruin everything you are. I should have started that a little higher. I'll give you television, I'll give you eyes of blue, I'll give you blah 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 to rule the world. You know, kind of critiquing those secular cultural values that Americans had at the time. There was another song by Don Henley from the Eagles called Dirty Laundry that I thought had some, you know, semi-significant lyrics. Got the bubble-headed bleach blonde, she comes on at 5. She can tell you about the plane crash with a gleam in her eye. It's interesting when people die. Give us dirty laundry. You know, our current obsession with secular news. Why do we want to hear about tragedies around the world? Is it so we can pray for these people? Okay, that's a good reason. I hope that's the reason. I don't know. That's always bothered me a little bit. It's kind of like when you're driving down a highway and on the other side of the highway there's an accident, and for no apparent reason all the people on your side of the highway slow down. Why do they do that? To look at the accident. Why do they want to do that? I don't know. I don't like to think about that too long. There was Every Breath You Take by the Police. Every breath you take, every clam you bake, every cheese you cake, every yard you rake, I'll be watching you. There was Yes making a comeback with Owner of a Lonely Heart. I used to sing Owner of a Grocery Cart, owner of a grocery cart. You know, just silly things to take down the seriousness of the song. Journey had a string of hits in the 80s, including Send Her My Love, blah, 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 blah. I don't know, some serious line. I sang, Send her my luggage, send it COD. Donna Summer had a song called She Works Hard for the Money, so hard for it, honey. I used to sing, she puts lard in her tummy, just lard in it, honey. Total Eclipse of the Heart. I won't even get into that one to say that they played that song to death. I think I kind of liked it at first, but after the 5 millionth time hearing it, not so much. Twilight Zone, remember that one, by Golden Earring? I realized they were the same group who had a hit called Radar Love in 1973, and now here we were in 1983, which was their next hit. So I figured every 10 years. I figured they'd have another hit long about 1993. They didn't. Again, fame is fleeting. Well, anyway, I continued to go to my semi-local college part-time that spring, and I was still also working the custodial job at the bakery that I mentioned a couple of videos ago. It was only a couple hours in the late afternoon, that job, and then I was working the midnight shift at the convenience store. When I finally left the bakery that fall to go back to school full-time, I left on good terms with my boss. Remember, I had mentioned there was some bad issues there, and we patched it up. It's good and it's right to mend fences. You know, we talked about that a couple videos ago with the verses about if you remember your brother has something against you. There's another one, good verse for this too, and kind of more inclusive even than just if you happen to remember someone has something against you. It's Romans 12:18. Romans 12 is a great chapter for Christian living. And verse 18 says, "If it is possible, as much as depends on you, live peaceably with all men." Don't start or continue vain disputes. Don't start or continue strife with others. I also mentioned a couple episodes ago that God gave me the opportunity to start doing skits with a Christian singing group, Jubilation, at their concerts, and how that quickly turned into an opportunity to sing with them. So God opens a door, you go through it, He gives the other opportunities. We had practices once or twice a week, so now instead of going out with, you know, my friends and just, you know, seeing a movie or whatever a couple nights a week, I was practicing for this Christian singing group. And we had performances as well, and we started to hang out with each other from time to time on top of that. So my social activities began to revolve more around this Christian activity than other things. That's important for a believer. We need fellowship with other believers, and we need to do things with other believers. We need that support. It's hard to be, and it's not advisable to be, or to try to be, a Lone Ranger Christian. No, Tonto. And we're not really meant to be. Ecclesiastes 4:9-10 says, "Two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, one will lift up his companion. But woe to him who's alone when he falls, for he has no one to help him up." I'm falling and I can't get up. Not a good thing. Proverbs 14b, and similarly to other places in Proverbs, talks about the fact that in the multitude of counselors, advisors, you know, Christian friends you can bounce things off of, there is safety. So in addition to these practices and performances for Jubilation, Fishers of Men, the larger Christian choir I was in, also started up their practices that January with performances coming along in March. So then I was doing double duty. So I was basically working and doing this a lot of the time, these Christian groups. What do you fill your free time with, believer? Are you using it for the Lord? What do you do with the God-given talents you have? Are you using them for the Lord? We all know that parable of the talents in the Bible, right? It's very convicting. And about the free time, my pastor's fond of saying, yeah, I know I really should be doing something for the Lord, but He knows I need my me time. And the pastor likes to say, can you show me a verse for that? It's kind of convicting too. Anyway, no better way to put the time in than to be working for the kingdom of the one who saved you and who gave you new life. 2 Corinthians 5:15 says, "And He died for all." Why? "That those who live should no longer live for themselves, but for Him who died for them and rose again." On a late June morning that year, I woke up with a literally burning desire to return to Kutztown, where I had left a year and a half ago, running out of money, and really, you know, would have liked to stay there, but it didn't work out. Largely due to my own faults, as you can find in previous episodes. I talked about that. But what I mean by literally burning desire, I mean, yeah, like that tingling when your foot falls asleep, only inside and in my chest, in my neck, in my head, and it was a warm feeling, not a sharp feeling, but it was there. It was tangible. I felt it. I'd never felt such a tingle before, and I thought, this probably means something. And it was like the manifestation, the physical manifestation of a strong desire to return to Kutztown, where I had gone to school. So I thought, I better heed this. So I got in my car, I drove the hour to the admissions office in June, talked to somebody, pretty easily got readmitted, got the ball rolling on that, and the rest is history, as I'll talk about in future videos. But clearly God's doing. Listen when He speaks to you, however He speaks to you. It may not be that way, it may simply be a still small voice, it may simply be through His Word, but listen when He speaks to you. Now, there was a little matter of money and housing. From a human standpoint, now I knew God wanted me to go back to school, but I had no idea how that was going to take place. But as someone has said, a Christian teacher, where God guides, God provides. I think that is biblical. You follow God's plan, He is not going to leave you in the lurch and expect you to figure out how to do it all by yourself. I have found that to be true in my life. So, affordable housing was hard to find that close to the start of the semester in Kutztown. Kutztown was a college town. The college had only enough dormitory space for maybe half of its population. The rest of the students lived in the town, and they bought or rented out those rooms, you know, like the spring semester before they left for summer. So there wasn't much available, but a Christian friend of mine who I had met when I was at Kutztown the first time offered to let me stay at his house. Told him about my predicament. His house was about 30 or 40 minutes from Kutztown, but I got to stay there, pay a very reasonable rent that I could afford. His mother cooked me breakfast Monday through Friday. I mean, talk about a great deal. And partway through that semester, that friend had to come back home unexpectedly, which means he vacated his dorm room. So then we switched places. He came back home where I had been living at his home, and I took his place in the college dorm. Talk about God working things out. It's great to support and help one another out and to be used of God in that way, and God clearly used my friend to do that. I do not know how I would have been able to return to Kutztown otherwise. So if God calls you to do something, He will make the way for you to do it. You don't have to figure all that yourself. Look to Him. Finally, August of '83 was a momentous month. The Jesus 83 festival was in early August. I mentioned this kind of Christian Woodstock, which I'd gotten saved 5 years earlier. On a Thursday to Saturday it was, but many people arrived there by Wednesday, and on Wednesday afternoon they had sort of a pre-festival thing with just a few small musical acts. That's when our group sang. And that was a great blessing to be able to minister on the same stage where 5 years earlier Keith Green had ministered and spoken, and God used him to draw me to salvation. And near the end of that month, by God's grace and help, I made the joyous return to Kutztown with "What a Feeling" blasting on my car radio as I pulled up. And God continued to work as I followed His plan for me. Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans I have for you, God says. So live for Him, believer, and His plan, not for you or your plan. Let your life show Christ to others, and as I should have done with that group that I worked with at the store, show Christ to others in your words too. This is Mark. This has been Lessons Learned. I hope this has helped you and maybe entertained you. And we'll see you next time. Bye.